Hello and welcome to another episode of the Business of Business podcast. I'm your host, Roy. So we are the podcast that brings a wide range of guests that can talk about a lot of diverse topics. And today is no different. We have Alan Stevens with us. I've been waiting for this interview for the last couple of weeks. This is going to be very exciting. So Alan is an international profiling and communication specialist, regularly featured on national TV, radio, and in the world's press, profiling the likes of our leading politicians, TV and sports stars, as well as Britain's royalty. He's been referred to by the UK Guardian as the leading authority on reading people globally, and the mentalist meets Dr. Phil by the Herald. Alan has worked with international clients like the likes of Disney Films and Gillette, and high-profile organizations like the Australian Federal Police to help them understand how people tick. Alan works with business owners and executives, helping them to understand and engage their clients and prospects, enhancing their presentations and negotiation skills, and with parents and teachers to help them enhance the ability of their children to reach their full potential while improving the experience of parents, teacher, and student. His latest community initiative is the Campfire Project. The Campfire Project is a safe place for men and women to give themselves permission to tell their stories, to share their experiences and wisdom from around the world. This is his hashtag We Together initiative. Alan, thanks so much for taking time out of your day to be with us.
Oh, it's been my pleasure. Thank you very much.
Wish I had met you 30 years ago when my kids were young. Might have been a lot of less grief for all of us going through that.
I'll tell you what, I wish I'd had my skills back then as well, because I would have been better with my kids as well.
Yeah, right. Well, reading people, it's important. We've had this conversation. That's a reason why I'm excited to get you on here. Also, we'll just I usually let everybody know that the video of this interview will be put up as well. But the nice thing about video versus text is we can actually see the reactions. Sometimes sometimes I'm just have to say I'm probably one of the funniest people I know, and I will send a zinger to my girlfriend or to one of the kids, and I'm sitting there dying laughing. They're like, "Yeah, I just don't get that," or they're like, "What are you saying?" They take it totally wrong because they can't see my impression. So I'm going to let you take it from there. It's such an important part of that communication.
Oh, well, that's right, because they say that when it comes to communication, body language, the tone of voice, the words, that makes up 100% when you put it together, but the words are worth about 7% of the communication.
Oh, wow.
The tone of voice, 38%, the body language, 55%. Now, that doesn't mean that the words aren't important. The words are equally important to the communication as the body language and the tone of voice, because without it, you don't have communication. Like if I'm sitting here and I'm just shuffling around and I'm grunting, making noises, there's no communication. So you've got to have the words. But as far as the amount of information that's conveyed, the words only convey a very small amount. And as I always say to people, that when you're with somebody and they're talking, everyone says you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth. And I go, well, you've also got 2 eyes, 2 ears and 1 mouth. Use them in that proportion. Because it's not just, well, at school, we were told to sit and listen. And so all of our focus is on listening. In a court of law, everything is focused on listening again as well. You've got to listen to what's being said. You've got to uncover the truth. It's got to be spoken. And in that, we don't focus much on the nonverbals. But as children, we were very good at reading people. We had to be able to recognize somebody's facial features, to recognize whether we knew them or not, know whether they were safe to be around or not, but then also be able to read their expressions and their tone of voice and everything else. All of that gave us so much information. It was about survival, as in tribal times and also as young children. And let's face it, young children, if anyone's got young children, just ask yourself this: how often do your children push you right to the edge, but not over the edge? That's because they are reading you. They're experts at it. But like anything, as we get older, we focus on everything else we're doing and we forget about that. So the end result is we're now told words are the most important thing, but they're not. It's a tone of voice and everything. If I said, I didn't say she stole the money in a flat line. Well, there's just one, I could take the meaning anyway. But if I said I didn't say, or if I'd said I didn't say he stole the money, the inflection changes the whole meaning of the sentence. Could be the first one that somebody else said it. The second one is I didn't say. I wrote it down, or I left a message for somebody in a written format. So the words change as soon as you put the inflection in. That's what we need to focus on.
Right. Yeah. Before we get too deep into it, kind of how did you find yourself here? I mean, what path led you to be able to, help people read other people?
Well, it's like when you said about a little while ago about your children. And why I chuckled about that is the fact that I was dreadful at reading people. I'd grown up as pretty much a loner, and then got involved in when I got employed. I was put in charge of men who were older than me, so I had to get them on side. And all the way through, I'd always struggled to try and connect with people. I'd been through 2 divorces. I had a lot of business partners a couple of them who actually emptied the bank out, and a lot of other relationships. And when my first wife left, I had 3 boys to raise on my own. So right through my life, I've always been in the deep end. And through necessity, it was after my second divorce, and then working with people who were currency traders who weren't making any money, with the company that trained them, got me to come in and have a look. I needed to find out a lot more about how to read people, and that's how my skills have increased over the years. It was adding, first of all, body language, then it was being able to understand the words, my NLP masters, and more recently into the facial profiling, which has given me so much more information.
Yeah, that's awesome because it really is a skill that we should use in our life, in every facet, business, our personal relationships, friendships, even when we're dealing with merchants, vendors, negotiating contracts. I mean, it just applies to everything.
That's it. Well, at the end of the day, relationships are the foundation of everything we do. And without having built a relationship with somebody, we don't have any impact with them. If you're selling, nobody buys from anybody they don't know, like, and trust, unless they have to. You're the only person selling, and they definitely or desperately need the product.
Right.
But then when it comes to a relationship, that, by the way, finding a right partner is probably the biggest sale of our life, to try and convince somebody they should spend the rest of their life with us. And so with that, we need to be able to read the other person. We need to be able to build that relationship. Without the relationship, nothing's going to happen.
Right. Right. Exactly. So, so many times that we spend, I guess, not being what we call an active listener. I think it's something that's not new, but it's come along. But it's also, I think it goes with what you said, because the saying, we've got 2 ears, listen twice as much. But now we've got, as you point out, we've got 2 eyes. So I guess now, instead of trying to formulate, maybe the first sentence that comes out of your mouth, I'm already thinking, all right, this is what I've got to, if he'll just ever quit talking for just a minute, this is what I'm going to say. And, sometimes we spend our time, instead of listening or watching or paying attention, we're just waiting an opening to jump in and kind of spew whatever we might have to say.
That's it. And the end result with doing that, we're not building a relationship. The more we can focus on the other person, if we're selling, for instance, it's all about being able to build that strong relationship. And to do that, we have to give them the ample time to be able to get their message across. And then we need to be able to listen to that. We need to be able to respond in conversation. See, I don't walk in and try and sell to somebody. I want to find out what's important to them, why it's important, not only why they need it, but why they want it, and what's the things behind that. And to do that, you just got to shut up. It's no other choice.
Right. So is it better, I guess, kind of let's talk about the sales process first off. That's a good one. But, we want to put some questions out there. We always want to ask probing questions, but then, like you said, kind of walk us through how we want to set back some things that we may want to watch for as they answer these probing questions.
Well, one of the things is, before I actually go and see somebody, I've already done everything I can to find out about their personality. And the good thing about it, with the profiling that I do, all I need to do is see their photograph, whether it be a website photo or a LinkedIn profile or anything like that. I'll know their personality.
Okay.
So I don't even have to ask them a single question. It's like somebody walks past me in the street, I've got them. And
Wow.
then I know how to speak to them because, if I look at you, for instance, I know that you're analytical to a certain degree. You need a certain amount of information before you make your decision.
Yes.
But once you've made your decision, get out of the way and let me get it done. So you're not going to look for all the different possibilities. You just want the best one, get into it and move on to the next project after that. So if I know that there's going to be a lot of information you're going to be asking for. So I know that you're going to ask me questions. If I just give you an overview, you'll try and stop me and get more information on each item as I go. So if I want to set the conversation up with you, I'd say, well, look, Roy, there's a lot of information in here, but so I don't forget anything, what I want to do is just put it all on the table first of all, give you the overview, and then we go back and spend as much time as you need to cover every aspect of it. Is that okay? I get the yes from you. I start to give the overview. And if you interrupt me, then I can say, well, as I said before, Ray, it's really important that I don't forget anything. And that's got to be important to you. So I'm getting yeses from you. I'm getting your confirmation of that. And then I can put on the table because say if I'm the person who just needs the overview, first of all, that's why I need to put the information out to you. But I also need to know that you need that time to be able to get all your answers as well. So I pre-frame the conversation before we even start.
And that's interesting. I mean, and for full disclosure, I think that we've spoken. This is a couple times, maybe for as little as 15 or 20 minutes. Very good call. I do feel I am very analytical. That's I've just always been in that role in my life, and it's kind of taken that on. But so what are some of the clues either that you've picked up as we have been talking, or looking at LinkedIn or pictures? What are some things that were the giveaway for that?
Well, look, first of all, when I meet somebody for the first time, the very first thing I'm going to do is, if we're meeting in real life, we're going to be close to each other. I need to know, first of all, how much space do you need? Because if I come in too close, I'm highly affable. I'm quite comfortable standing close to people for the first time, very close to them. Some people need space, not that they're not friendly, but they're more discerning. They want to check out who's safe to be around and who's not safe to be around. That one you'll find in the height of the eyebrows. The higher the eyebrows are set away from the eyes, the bigger the gap between the upper eyelid and the eyebrow, the more that person needs some space. And the way I measure that one, looking vertically through the pupil, if I imagine a vertical line, because people have different shaped eyebrows, I'm looking for the gap at that particular point. That tells me how much space the person needs. So when I walk up to them, if they've got high set eyebrows, I'll stop just before they get to me, put my hand out, and I let them set up the space that they need. Now, I know that whether I've got rapport with them, if there's a lot of noise around and we've been talking for a while, and I lower my voice. If they lean in, then I know that they're comfortable with me now, and they're also interested in what I'm talking about.
Interesting.
So I can test everything as I go. But on the one with yourself, analytical, but not super analytical to the point. This is in the actual eyelid exposure itself. If people are looking at the video here, they'll see that you've got a bit of a fold of skin and the eyelash comes close to it, but doesn't go right underneath it. Where the eyelash goes underneath, the eyelid goes underneath that fold of skin, you'll have somebody then who is highly analytical. When there's no gap, no line there at all, or there's a large gap between it, you've got somebody who is more big picture. They just want the overview, the least amount of information. They would like to, if they're on a mountain peak and there's another mountain peak and they've got to get from one mountain peak to the other one, they just want to know where's the bridge. Whereas somebody who's highly analytical will go down the mountain, checking all the details out across the valley. And before they even go up the other side, they've worked out where they want to get there or not. And so they will take longer to make a decision. They also need more information. So if I've got somebody who's highly analytical, I'm not going to give them too much, give them just the overview. I'll set it out that way, but I'll be waiting for them to ask me a lot of questions, and I'll keep answering the questions as long as they're asking them, because I know while they're asking questions, they're interested, and I know that they're getting what they need, which is all the information. If it's somebody who just wants the overview and I'm analytical, I would say to them, look, there is a lot of information here. I'm going to give you the overview. You ask the questions that you want to ask, and I know there's not going to be too many, but I'll then say, well, look, if there's something there that I think you need to know that you haven't asked, is it all right if I ask you that then? And so now I give them the overview. Okay, what questions I got? They ask those questions. And then if there's something they haven't asked that I think they need to know, I'll say, well, remember I said before, there might be something you need to know, but that boring stuff, we're there now. Is that okay? And I generally get like a smile, what I'm getting for you is a smile and a nod. Then I can give them that information. But see, by doing it that way, instead of me just hitting them with all the information, which is me talking at them,
Right.
I'm having a conversation with them where we're talking together, backwards and forwards.
Yeah.
And so that's the whole thing. So the whole thing is to be able to read the other person and know that how to make them comfortable and how to give them the information that they need. The sale, if you're selling something, the sale will take as long as it needs to take based on their personality.
Interesting. So I guess, you mentioned the nod and the smile. What are some other keys that we can pick up from? And I did like the one about the, when you lower your voice, somebody leans in and it lets you know that they're comfortable. Reactions or facial, besides just turning up the nose or frowning, are there other things that we can look for in that as well, in that exchange?
Yeah, well, when they're talking to us, there are things that we call micro expressions. And they're very quick expressions on the face that happen at the moment something is said or something happens. If we think about it, we know that, and by the way these work, how many times have you been speaking to somebody, everything sounds perfectly fine, but you've had that gut feeling something was wrong?
Yeah.
What you'll find is the tone of voice, the body language, the expressions on their face, there's something that is out of whack. Unconsciously, we've recognized it, but then consciously, we don't know what we're seeing. We just know something's not right. But with the micro expression, they will appear as soon as something is said or something happens. For instance, out of the corner of your eye, you might see something that's on the ground. So we get a feeling of surprise because, oh, what is that? We turn around and then realize it's only a piece of, a twig or something like that, or a rolled up hose. And so we go, okay, now it's fine. In that one moment, it's as fast as a fifth of a second to 1/25th of a second. The unconscious mind reacts, then the conscious mind steps in and the expression disappears. And it sounds pretty fast being a fifth of a second or even 1/25th of a second. We're down to about 40 milliseconds. It's extremely quick. However, the eye picks it up and the unconscious mind definitely picks it up. So once you've got the unconscious mind tuned in, you're understanding what's going on, you're able to pick all this up. And there are 7 expressions which are universal. Doesn't matter if you've been born in a capital city, a tribal village, been blind from birth. If you feel one of those emotions, you'll have the corresponding expression on your face. And you're looking for that. Okay. But I'll put this caveat in here for people to understand this. It's like when I'm reading someone's profile, their personality, not one trait on its own defines you. It's a combination of all the traits together. It's the same thing with the nonverbal indicators that tell you what's going on emotionally. You need to look at as many as you possibly can. Like the old saying that somebody with folded arms, they're closed off. Well, it could be that they're cold. It could be a myriad of different reasons. It could be that you intimidate them because they've got you up on a pedestal. But what's all the other indicators saying? If their feet are facing towards the door, they're leaning back, they're starting to lean away from you. Yeah, okay, they are closed off. But if their arms are folded and they're leaning forward, feet are straight towards you, they're nodding, and they're responding to your conversation as you're talking, then they're interested. But the arms are just giving themselves possibly a little warm hug because it could be they're cold. It could also be that they're intimidated. Could be a lot of reasons. But if they unfold their arms while I'm talking to them, and they've still got the indicators, all the other indicators are facing towards me, I know they're even more switched on now. They're more interested than what they were before.
And so what about, because actually I just written that down. And so thank you for answering that about the folded arms. What about the next one was setting with your hands folded on a table? And I think, some of that is if I'm leaning in toward, if we're at a conference table, if I'm leaning in toward you versus leaning back, does that have any significance?
Well, the hands folded. I'm actually sitting here. This is why my hands were on my lap. Okay. So I'm certainly not disinterested in what you're asking me and everything else. You're so kind to actually be interviewing me, which I'm very appreciative of. So this is just me feeling comfortable. If I'm leaning forward, then what do? Do you have your hands out like that? They feel awkward. This just makes it feel a little bit more comfortable. And as far as people might say, oh, that's because you're trying to give yourself another hug again. I do these talks regularly. So it's not about being nervous or anything else.
Yeah.
It's just that's a comfortable way I do things. I've probably been doing that since I was a kid. So it's a habit more than anything else. As I said, what's all the other indicators showing you?
Yeah.
Don't just take one on its own.
Yeah. No, that's good. The other thing I try to look at too is the engagement. If we're talking, and before we start interviews, I make it clear with my guests that, when I'm bending down and writing, I'm taking notes constantly, not only for myself to remember, but, as things come up, I may ask questions. So, that's really not, I'm not disengaged for sure. I'm very interested, but, let's just say we're having a meeting, a conversation, people that are, constantly turning away. I don't know. I don't have my phone's not close, but you could tell if I pick my phone up, if I'm always distracted. A lot of times people, well, I will say people close to me, sometimes I say, hey, look, I need your full attention. I'm trying to communicate something to you. I don't mind being a little bit more abrupt and straightforward. But when we're in a business negotiation or a business phone call, I'm probably not quite that abrupt. I may say, do you have a question, or try to redirect, but let's talk about that for a minute. A lot of times people say, well, I'm multitasking, I can think about this and that, which I don't know. I've read a lot of literature lately that says that is certainly a myth, that, our brain can perform one function at a time. We may have 3 or 4 balls in the air. We can do that, but I can't simultaneously be typing a text message to somebody and listening to what you're telling me.
That's exactly right. See, as far as multitasking goes, it's a myth. Absolutely. The people that say that they can, that's ego. Because, as you said, the brain can only handle one thought at a time. When people talk about multitasking, when you think about multitasking, there was things that were happening at the same time down the same pathway. And there's things like time division. If something would go out, something else would follow behind it, and something behind that. So there's a switching on and switching off. So when you multitask and you think you're multitasking, trying to do 2 things at once, the brain's going on and off, on and off. Every time it goes off, it's like putting the brakes on, coming up to a set of lights, you slow down, then you accelerate away. So you're actually extending the period. Now, here's a little test that people can do. If they've got a piece of paper or a whiteboard or whatever, get your stopwatch out and time yourself. Write the numbers 1 to 26, and then write the alphabet A through to Z, and see how long that takes you. Then go 1A, 2B, 3C, write them down in that way. And I guarantee, even though you've written down the same numbers and the same letters, it will take you longer. Some people, it takes them 2.5 times as long. Some people only 10% longer, but there's nobody can do it in exactly the same time, which proves that you cannot multitask. So if somebody is doing something else, if in a meeting, what I'd actually say to them is, well, look, I can see that there's something else that's more important. Do you want to get onto that and reschedule? That usually means that you're going to walk out. They wasted that period of time. You're also showing that you have importance. Their phone's not as important. You may think that your phone's more important than me, but I'm more important. We've had this meeting. This is a place about mutual respect.
Right.
So I'm happy to pull them up on that and say, well, look, let's reschedule for another time when you've got a bit more time to do this. Because if they're not listening to, they're doing that, and I'm trying to sell to them, I'm wasting my time anyway. They're not going to buy. So why should I continue anymore? They've already disrespected me and everything else. No, I'm out of there. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And, you mentioned the whiteboard. That's another exercise, but also I was just thinking about, props and PowerPoint slides, or, some kind of material that we're trying to share with somebody too. What are some reads that we can get from them if we've, passed them a piece of paper? If they're looking at it, taking it in, does it really matter? Are there things that we can pick up from that?
Well, what I usually do, instead of just getting them to look at something, I'll have it partially prepared. I use blueprints when I'm explaining things to people, and I'll get them to, to write things in. So if we're talking about, say it's in a sale, for instance, I'll be asking, well, how much, how many sales are you missing, etc. How much money is that for per sale? I get them to write that down, or I write it down and show them, and I'll be sitting in a position where I've got their engagement. But the more you can get them engaged, the more they're focused there. If you give them something to read, then you need to get them to go through it with you. Because if you don't, you got to put a large sheet of paper in front of me, and it's all black and white and everything goes, and I'm trying to listen to somebody. I can't read at the same time. As I said, I can't multitask. Nobody can. So you give them time to read through that. You might ask them, okay, can you check out this first paragraph or whatever it might be? And then ask about that. What do you think about that? So always go to get the engagement. As you said before, as you said, you pre-framed it. This is the thing, always pre-frame what you want to do. You pre-framed it by telling me that because I can't see down below your shoulders, I can't see your desk, I can't see the notes or the pen or anything else. So if you're looking away all the time, I could make the mistake and assume that you're not interested, but you've already pre-framed it by having said to me, look, is it all right? I'm going to be taking some notes because I want to make sure that if any questions come up, I can re-ask them. So you're telling me what's going on. So every time you look down, I'm not giving that a second thought.
Yeah, no, that's good. That just gets back to communication. Sometimes it's just good that we just have that conversation that takes away any doubt that we may have. So let's talk about, a situation came up the other day, talking to a guest actually, and he was just he was just reiterating a situation that had happened to him, that he was in sales, been talking to a client. They had been saying, everything's good. We're good. They had been going down this path for some period of time. And as they were hanging up a phone call on a conference call, somebody on the other end said something to the effect of, we're really not going to buy from this guy, but I want you to get all the information that we possibly can out of him. So, as we are going through, and I will say the sales process is a little different than maybe the hard negotiation, but as we're going through that process, what are some keys that we can pick up on? Because we don't want to waste our time, and if you're not going to be a buyer, I need to move on, and I don't want to be there just to feed you information or help give you leverage against another supplier, things like that. But are there things that we can read that may help us know if we have to ask some reaffirming questions to say, look, I'm kind of getting this vibe from you. Are you really interested? Do we really is there really any reason to move forward?
Yeah, well, if they're, sitting with you where you can see them, you're always watching for their body language and everything else. But remember too, if you are somebody who's analytical, the impulse there is to talk, is to give them a lot of information. Well, you don't know what they're getting unless you can read their facial expressions and their body language and know that they're interested or not. The sale is not made in talking to them. The sale is made in listening to them. So it's a matter of getting them to ask them a couple of questions, get them to respond back, then listen to what they're saying. As I said before, you've got 2 eyes and 2 ears. Listen to what they're saying as well. Then ask them questions. And while you're asking the questions, watch to see the responses. See their interest and everything else. If they're nodding at the right times, they're leaning in, they're asking questions. And as they're giving you information, like a good interviewer, you're always going to be asking them questions to requalify what they've said. You're taking it deeper and deeper, because I've got a friend of mine who always talks about the ETM equals the ATM. So the ATM being the automatic teller machine, and the ETM being the emotions, time, and money, because we only do things to save money, make money, and to save time. And the third one is the emotional reason why we're doing it. So yes, we have a need. Therefore, we have a want around that. But beyond the want, what is the things beyond that that tell us why that person really wants that? What are the emotional connections? Because we're only satisfied in the sale when we're emotionally satisfied. We're 18% logic and 82% emotion. So until the emotional side is set, you haven't got a sale. You have to get them into where they're responding to you. They're telling you all they need to tell you. They're telling you about why it's important to them, what they're going to get out of it by having and achieving all this. That is allowing them to talk themselves into the sale. If you do it properly, you're not selling, but the other person is buying.
Right. Okay. No, that's awesome. But yeah, I knew this was going to go by fast. There's so much to talk about. Let's kind of switch over to our personal relationships,
Mm.
spouses, loved ones, girlfriends. Let's talk about that. Some things. And I'm going to put this on me and say, not only what I pretty much know what to be looking for and when to turn and run. It's like I've lived this long, so I know how to survive, jokingly. But, what are some things that we can do or as, to better communicate with our spouses, the body language, and show them that we're interested in their problem or whatever's going on at that time?
Excellent. Well, I've got what I call the 7 secrets to reading people. And the very first 3 are the most important. The first one is to know yourself, first of all. Second one is to know your partner. And the third one is then to speak to them in the way that they need to be spoken to. So don't talk in the way that you need to be spoken to, match the way that they need to be spoken to. And the more that we understand our partner, the better off we are. But knowing where we are, first of all, on the world scale, where do we fit? And then we look at the other person, where do we fit in comparison to them? So do I have to give them more information? Do I have to give them more time to listen to them? How do I need to respond? I know that, well, both you and I, it's about aesthetic appreciation, how things feel inside. So I know that when you've got something on your plate and you're busy, you're going to withdraw into your cave. You want to fix it yourself. Just leave me alone to get it done. If you've got a partner who has what I call dramatic appreciation and they need to know what's going on, and they'll come up and go, and they'll just start asking you questions. And the more they ask you questions, the more you then disappear into your cave. So it's like this chase. And all of a sudden, then they're going, well, what's wrong? Why aren't you talking to me? But they haven't recognized that you need space to be able to work on something. So in their case, if they've got the dramatic appreciation, you've got aesthetic appreciation, if they know that you need to work on something, if they just came up and had 2 questions and a statement. First question, is this something that that is due to me? It's something that I can fix? No, it's not. Okay, is there anything I can help you with? No, there's not. Then it comes a statement. Okay, I know that, Roy, you need to be able to work on this on your own. It's something you got your mind on. I'm going to leave you alone to do that. Can you come and talk to me when you're finished? And at that point, you feel like you don't have to run back into your cave to get away from all this chatter. You're able to work on it. You're more appreciative of it, more likely to go back and see them. In their partner's case, if they're the one with the dramatic appreciation and they're starting to vent, you can hear them talking about all the things that are stressing them. You've got one question. Is this something you want me to fix, or is this something you want me to just listen to? Because I can do either. And if your partner then goes, no, I don't want you to fix it, I just want you to listen. Then you go, okay, fine. You know that they need to vent. So if you care about your partner, you just listen without any stress. They're having a shot about somebody else. If they say, yes, I want you to fix it, then it's either something you can fix or it's possibly something that you did in the first place they want you to fix. But now you know what your instructions are. And most men always go to the fixing role. Women go into being able to share it because they're quite often the ones with the dramatic appreciation. There has been gender changes, though. There are a lot of men who are like this as well. But the women will need to voice it, but the man needs to fix it. And the problem is we don't communicate in between. But by saying to the woman, first of all, asking her that question, is this something, or partner with dramatic appreciation, by asking them, is this something you want me to fix or just listen? You've shown that acknowledgement. And they'll be appreciative of that. Don't just jump in and try and fix it. And don't run away because oh my God, they're drama queens. And by the way, every trait has an upside and every trait has a downside. There's no right or wrong trait. Whatever traits you have, the nurture traits or the nature traits, first of all, that were passed down in the DNA from your parents, because every memory we have is stored in every cell of our body. So at the time of conception of a child, memories of both parents are passed down to that child. That's why each of our children, the generation or first child and the second child and the third child are different. It's because we are different when we conceive them. Our memories are different. So that's your nature traits. They're in the DNA. Then we have our response, what we call nurture, which is our response to our environment. So some of those traits are going to be in those children. So when we're talking to them, the more we can understand the other person, the more we can connect with them on their level. So when we put the traits together, that's when we can define someone's personality, but not define them on one trait on its own. Yeah. Dramatic appreciation, great for presenting, natural presenters. So, great on stage and everything, because they don't have to practice. I had to practice a lot before I was able to be animated and more entertaining on stage, whereas the dramatic appreciation just walked out and had it. Yeah. But the downside of the trait is when they're stressed, to me and other aesthetic appreciation people, they will come across as drama queens. They won't to other people like them. So as I said, no right or wrong trait. But it'll be the fact that they were very expressive and everything. They were exciting to be around, which will be the reason why I was attracted to them. Yeah. But then if I get used to that, the excitement, because something that we get every day, it's like we might have a favorite food, really love it, but if we ate it every day, we'd get bored with it over a period of time. We wouldn't like it anymore. So now we notice the downside of the trait and we say our partner's changed. No, they haven't. Our awareness of them's changed. So if we understand them and we know how to speak to them, we can then circumvent all those issues and bring the romance back into the relationship. And this is where marriage counseling can be done in a flash.
Okay. Yeah, and that's awesome. That is something I will say I'm very bad about, is always that fixer. It's like, you hear a problem, oh, I got a solution for you. And we're just like, I wasn't looking for a solution. I just was trying to, blow off some steam and just let you talk. So yeah, definitely guilty of that. One thing you did bring up is in the way you speak, and something I've heard in the past, that we should try to, not necessarily with our spouse, but with people in general, if we're talking to them, we should try to match their speed, cadence, volume. And sometimes if you pay attention really close, you can bring somebody back down. If, like I know a guy that's a really fast talker, and sometimes I just have to even start talking very slow to bring him back down. Is there any truth to that working and having a better conversation with somebody when you can match that?
Yeah, there is a conscious way of doing it, and there's the unconscious way of doing it. The conscious way is where we're trying to match and mirror. We're looking at them, we're watching them and everything else, and we try and match with them. But our concentration is on us, looking at them, but trying to change ourselves. When we focus unconsciously on somebody, we really focus in on them. It's surprising how we then start to match them without even thinking about it. Okay. So there's having processed it. And if you process it and you think, right, when they lift their hand, I'll do the same sort of thing. Or if they lift their right hand, I'll lift my right hand to match it, or I'll lift my left hand when they got their right hand up to mirror it. And mirroring, by the way, usually has a faster impact than the matching. Okay. So, on stage, you'll always find that most people are right-handed. And when you ask questions, you'll see the announcer will actually put their left hand up. They say, what does everybody think? Does everyone agree with this? Put your hand up if you do. Everyone actually goes with their right. The presenter's done their left. So there's the natural connection straight away. That's why the presenter doesn't just ask the question. He also does, and he or she does the movement. Yeah. And so it has an impact. But when you're able to really focus in on the other person, it's surprising how you automatically change with them. You can try this as well. One of the things is that I'll go into and I've taken people into large gatherings, and I go, who do you like in the room? And they might look, and there's somebody on the other side of the room. They could be a male or a female, the other person as well. And they'll pick out somebody and go, okay, just watch them. Watch their breathing and just start to try and get in rhythm with their breathing. See the way they're standing and everything. Because the other person on the other side of the room is not even looking in their direction. But over a little period of time, they'll turn around and they'll notice you. So if you ever want to connect with somebody, by matching them in that particular way, you will get their attention, because we're energy beings. We pick things up. How often have you walked into a room and you're going, oh, I don't want to be here? You've picked up the energy straight away. Or other times you walk in, you go, oh, this is really nice.
Yeah.
Because we pick that stuff up, whether you like it or not, whether you think that's all crazy, you think it's all woo-woo and esoteric and everything else, it is a science. Yeah. So once you understand that, you can then use that to connect with people. So when I'm going into a meeting, I'll have a quick look as I come in. I'll see how people are sitting and everything else. I'll see how they're breathing. and I'll try and match that to get that instant rapport. From there, then I'll just listen to them, and by the more I focus in on them, I just naturally match and mirror them without even thinking about it. And as soon as I've done that, they're also feeling more comfortable as well, because we feel comfortable. We've got people who are just like us. That's why all our friends are very similar to us. And so the more I can then do that, but do it naturally and not be seen to be trying to deliberately do it, then the connection's always much stronger.
It's very interesting. So before we wrap up, you mentioned three of your seven. What can you tell us what number 4, 5, 6, and 7 are?
Well, that comes into looking at the micro expressions. Okay. And the other is. But what I'll do, if you like, I'll give you a link. It's a free download, and you can share it with your audience, and they can check it out for themselves.
No, that'd be great. No, I'd certainly like that. And also, before we wrap up too, I want to get you to talk for just a minute about the Campfire Project that you have.
Okay. Well, with all my work with people in business, especially with the men, when I was asking them, about what was the main thing that, the confusions, what areas do they have issues with? And they said, well, confusion was a big problem. And I said, in what way? And they said, well, look, in the family, we were told our job, we grew up this way. Our job was to go out and, pay the mortgage and everything else, earn the income, be the breadwinner. But now we're in trouble because we're absent from home. We're emotionally disconnected, and we can't be in two places at once. And at the same time, in the workplace, we've got all these gender issues, political correctness, and the way we used to be able to talk to each other. Now we're so on tender hooks, being very careful about what we say. And that's picking up, creating problems, because people are not trusting us anymore because we're not ourselves. And I realized that all of that was causing a lot of frustration. And we know that things like domestic violence come from when one party is completely frustrated. You've got that small percentage of people who are just absolutely nasty. But for the bulk of the others, it's a case of it's the frustration. And then when you're frustrated, you get angry. And when you get angry, then things start to happen. And I realized also that in the workplace, in 2016, it was 66% of people were disengaged in the workplace. That rose to 87% just before COVID in 2018. Wow. And that's gone up again with all of the isolation. So I realized that men needed a safe place where they could come along and feel, give themselves permission, feel free to tell their stories, to have somebody just sit and listen without criticism, without trying to fix anything, but just hold that space for them. It's like being pushed with, you're out there with your mates, you're sitting around a campfire, there's a connection, there's a camaraderie you don't get anywhere else. So I created the Campfire Project for that. Oh. I went through a process with the Aboriginal community, back 18, 20 years ago now, and I went through initiation, and that was bringing boys into manhood. And so it was, how do we help boys to become men? But then the second stage from there was, how do we help men to become better men? And so I realized that by bringing men in, they could tell their stories. Then we brought them into panel discussions, and they would be able to discuss all different issues, and no subject's been off the table. We will talk about anything and everything. But I didn't want it just to be a men's group where the women were going, what are the men doing in there? And I thought, right, at the same time, it's like going to a motivational seminar. You can be all excited, had a great time. You go home and everybody tells you it won't work. You're waiting for the next seminar. And I could see that with a lot of men's groups. And so I realized I needed something that run 24/7, 365 days a year, where any man could go in. But at the same time, I didn't want them to come in and then go out and get hit in the face by the real world. There's a lot of trolls out there, both males and females, who want to keep pulling things down because their life's rubbish. They want to have everybody else the same state. Right. So, and then the men want to rush back in again. So I've had women in there from day one. And that was an opportunity for the women to hear how men can really speak when they feel safe to do so. At the same time, I wanted the men to know that women were listening to them. So the one-on-ones were pre-recorded. If somebody said something in that and, I shouldn't have said that, I'll hit the delete key, not a problem. I haven't wasted my time because I've fulfilled my purpose, which was to give them space, to actually hold space for them because they've never had a chance to voice things before. I've done that for them. We then put those videos up if they're happy with it. And I've only had 2 that people had asked to redo it again another time. And in that, then the women couldn't contain themselves, especially when I started doing the panel discussions. I was getting personal messages saying, never heard men talk like this before. We love it. We want to talk to them because this is the depth they're going to that we've never heard men do before. So I interviewed the women one-on-one, which was what I wanted to do from day one, but I was waiting for them. And then I brought them into the panel discussions. In just over 2.5 years now, we've had close to 270 one-on-ones, and we've had about 130 something, 133 panel discussions. So what you might consider close enough to 400 hours of interviews and panel discussions in 2.5 years, all videoed, where not once has any man or woman been rude to anybody else. Wow. Total respect. Like having the hashtag we together, as they say, if you've got individual groups, they're looking at each other as the problem.
Yeah.
But when you're together, shoulder to shoulder, you're looking at the problem. So, and you're fixing it together, not looking at each other as the problem. And so in that, it just keeps growing. And what I've been looking at doing is getting, because I've been interviewing people from all over the world, both men and women, and it's getting more and more people in, because the moment we had people came in, no bigotry, no racism, no gender issues or cultural issues, sexism or anything else, all of that stuff completely gone. And so it's just proving that, if we want to make a change in the world, it's a matter of choice and nothing else. Each person choosing to be that way, we've eradicated all of that immediately. And I can't do that, globally across the world to everybody. At least I can create an environment where those that want to be that way can come in. And that's the Campfire Project.
Wow, that is awesome. So tell everybody, first off, how can they reach out, look at, some information, and if they want to get involved, how do they get involved in the Campfire Project? And then also tell us how we can get a hold of Alan Stevens if we want to talk more about how we can read people, the art of reading people for, business, negotiation, relationships, all throughout our life.
Okay, well, for the Campfire Project, I created the closed group, but there's also a business page as well, a community page. Okay. Because anybody who comes in and tells their one-on-one, if they're a coach, for instance, the idea was anyone can tell their one-on-one. If then we have a coach who comes in and they want to tell their story, and I always encourage them to do that, because they're looking for clients. How do you know if you've got a good coach or not? You need to know they've got the experience. Well, by telling their one-on-one story, they've got the experience. So a lot of them are picking up clients through there, which is great, because my job was to facilitate the connection, not endorse them, but facilitate so people can make their own decision on them. Right. And so they then can advertise the projects and things that they're running. And I thought, right, we've got all the videos in the Campfire page group. And therefore with a community page, that's where we advertise it, because we advertise the talks we've got in there on that community page that allows people to come in, get the curiosity, and then come and join the group. And so if they just do a search on the Campfire Project, they'll find the community page, go to the community page and like that, and then you'll see the ads for the talks that we've done in the group. Click on one of those and that'll take you to the group page, and then you can join that. Okay. There are two questions when you come in. Both of them are the same question, but rephrased. And at the end, it's virtually asking, will you be respectful to everybody? And people said, why did I do the same question twice? Well, simply because these are two chances. You've answered yes to being respectful to everybody twice. You're disrespectful to somebody in there, you're out with, I don't care if you're male or female, I don't care who you've been disrespectful to, you're out, and you stay out until you can prove that you can be respectful before you can come back in again. And to contact me, just my name, alanstevens.com.au. So Alan with one L, ALANSTEVENS.com.au for Australia. And you'll find my webpage where you'll find a lot of what I call success stories, people talking about what they've achieved, parents with their children with autism and Asperger's and the results they've got, others just raising their children, been in business, in mental health, because it works in all areas, this stuff. Yeah. You'll find that on there, and you can contact me through the contact page.
Okay. Great, Alan. Well, thank you so much. It's been awesome. A lot of great information. Y'all go check out Alan's page. I'm going to put, I'll put the 7 secrets up in the notes of this podcast, as well as your contact information and about the Campfire Project too. So again, thanks a lot. That's going to do it for this episode of the Business of Business podcast. You can find us, of course, at www.thebusinessofbusinesspodcast.com. We're on all the major social media platforms as well as podcast platforms, iTunes, Stitcher, Google, Spotify. If we're not on one that you listen to regularly, please let me know. I'll be glad to have that added. So until next time, take care of yourself and take care of your business.